But
Mhm.
I will say that that idea that you're talking about,
Yeah.
like, that's what I've been thinking a lot about lately,
Mhm.
is like sort of taking SHMAG
Mhm.
and turning it into an online community
I like
where
that.
we're really talking about solutions and like I know you had mentioned the word sovereignty. I've been
Absolutely.
thinking a lot about the word autonomy, right?
Uh-huh.
And how like, like part of my whole issue with the natural law community is that like they I feel like I got into this point where I was like looking at all the words they were saying and I was like they're wrong about this. They're focusing on the negative aspect of the word, but really
Right.
there is a positive aspect to it. And I started going through all these different words like religion, government, and like finding that like no, there's a positive aspect to these, and these aren't things that we should just be saying religion is the problem, right? It's like
Right.
that's too simple. And
Yeah.
and you can't be so black and white. Like we have to integrate all of this. So like there was a reason for religion, there was a reason for government, there's a reason for everything, and not everything has to be evil and out to
Mhm.
out to get us. And so
Right.
and so I just so I started what I woke up one morning and I was thinking freedom under natural law is
Mhm.
is an oxymoron because
Mhm.
and I came up with that that name. I made up that name, like freedom under natural law. It became the funnel conference, like, but then it dawned on me that like it is accurate because we're saying it's freedom under something, so we're saying it's a limited form of freedom, right?
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
freedom under natural law, like if it's not freedom if you're constricted by something. The definition of freedom is no restrictions.
No, not in law, not out of law,
None.
not on law, not,
If there's
under.
law, if there's
Yeah.
law, then there's restrictions. And
So yeah, go ahead.
so anyway, I've really been thinking about like because even like the word sovereignty, like there's like one aspect of it where people think it means self-rule, but there's another idea that sov means above.
Above.
So it actually means above rule. And like
Yeah.
again, like it's like, okay, so let's be really like, what are we talking about when we're saying freedom? What we really mean is bodily autonomy. And
Mhm.
this for me ties into the health freedom movement, that this is really what it's all about. And if we can control our messaging, I mean it everyone's going to do their own thing, but like I want to be able to get on here and be like, talk about bodily autonomy and have everybody relate to that. No matter
Right.
where you fall, you know, because to say, oh, we want freedom, well, no, there is no ultimate freedom. I mean,
Mhm.
even like when you die, we don't know if that actually sets you free, and so anyway, I just that was just one of the things I wanted to talk about, but tying
Can
the
I
autonomy
Yeah.
into the health freedom movement and all of the things that we were saying, and then for
Mhm.
COVID to happen, and then people to halfway wake up,
Mhm.
I feel like we're at a time where we can start introducing this language again, but in a less aggressive way.
Yeah. Defensive weight. With your punching bags, because like people have their fists out and ready to punch and fight. What I want to say is that I have been diving deep into sovereignty. And like, so when we talk about nature and natural, it's like when we started this conversation about sovereignty, we're saying, okay, we're sovereign beings because we're created by God, right? We're created, and it's our natural right to govern our body. And so because sovereignty, has to do, like you said, above. And then so I've been deep diving into um the Christianity conversation. because in the Bible, Jesus talks a lot about the kingdom of God, right? And all of this has to do, like, we'll go into health and medicine and taking care of our bodies, with the things that I'm trying to talk about. But the kingdom of God. So when you think about the word kingdom, there is a king and there's a domain, right?
Mhm.
So there's a kingdom of God. And the thing with natural law, we say um there is a creator, right? There's something above all our human laws that is, and this is this natural law that, we are born, right? We live our lives, and there's those few, like, don't do any harm, don't murder, don't steal from others, basically don't harm others, and then we die, right? But within that, there is, so the thing that is not being talked about is that there is a creator, there is a something, right? And that's a spiritual thing, because if we're talking a bit just about law, um and we leave out the creator part, then there's nothing. And what we have as our governmental system right now is the only thing established. But if we really think about it, and what I've been going into a rabbit hole about is the kingdom of God. There's a king above everything, and then there's the domain. This is his
Mhm.
domain. This whole earth is the domain. And I don't know where this is going to go as far as like a conversation that you and I are having, but there's this domain and there's a king. So this isn't a democracy. This isn't a republic. This isn't
Right.
socialism. It is there is a king that reigns, and then everything is under that. So everything,
Mhm.
I like, if you're talking to Christians, everything that they do, like, they say things like, you know, um, my will is forfeited for God's will. Like, so I'm living,
Right.
and this is religion, and it's a spirituality, it's a spiritual practice, right?
Mhm.
And it's not a law that man made, but it's the idea of, I have a king, I have a Lord, I have a savior, and I am under his sovereignty. And so when people were fighting about their body autonomy when COVID first hit, they were saying, I call my sovereignty here. I
Right.
demand my sovereignty. And they were writing religious exemptions, right? They were
Mhm.
saying, no, I am, like, the Christian folks were saying, I am the temple of the living God, and I get to steward it, because that's what it says in the Bible. It says, there is your king, your Lord, and you're a part of his domain, and um you are under his will, and you're a steward. So everything you have, your house, your home, your children, is belongs to God, and you are a steward of it. Like it
Mhm.
says, talks about, a lot of people talk about how we're supposed to steward the earth. We're supposed to take
Yeah.
care of the animals and the fish. It's in Genesis,
Mhm.
we're supposed to take care of this. And so if we're stewards, then none of this belongs to us. It belongs to God. And so that's why people were writing religious exemptions. They were saying, hey, I am a temple of the living God. The God that I believe in dwells inside of me,
Right.
and you don't get, and I am responsible for this body and this life that I'm living. And government don't get to force a vaccine on me, and force isolation on me, and
Mhm.
force all these things. So I don't know where this is going, but it is not a democracy if you're looking at it in those terms. Like, all of the people that were filling out forms for religious exemptions that weren't denied them, they were talking about something like very spiritual. And
Mhm.
and I don't even think we've begun to tap into that and say, okay, let's really let's unwrap this, you
Yeah.
know? And it's
Yeah.
also it because of history and how men have ruled. Like, United States is supposed to be a democracy, right? But it's a corporation. But the way man has ruled in England, they had kings, and and even the Jews wanted a king, and they had their king for a while. And like, all of these other countries have had kings, and those were their kingdoms, and that's why they colonized, because kingdoms are there because they want to grow. They want to grow, and expand. That's what kingdoms do,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And this is the first time I'm really understanding what Jesus was talking about and the Bible's talking about this is all God's kingdom, right?
Hmm.
And the only reason I've been diving deep into it is because I'm trying to understand that sovereignty piece, right? Sovereign to who, right? Because
Right.
the United States says that we are, we're an asset to their corporation. So,
Right.
are they our rulers? We don't feel that way, right?
Right. Right. Well, not anymore. What have you ever heard of the servant king?
No.
Okay, so I'll try to find you a good link for it. A lot of it got pulled off the internet, but it's this guy named Marcus who's from Canada, and he did these two video series. One is called I forget the names of it. One is called anyway, uh, like the unraveling and something else. But basically, he goes through step by step how. So what you're saying, right? Like
Mhm.
there's God or the creator. The the creator creates everything. We're all under the creator.
Mhm.
And then we all get together and we turn away from God and we create our own God, right?
Mhm.
And then we are reborn to that new God. So that's the what they would say, the straw man, right? That you create, we've all
Mhm.
created now because we've
Right.
turned away from the real God. We've created our own, and that's the system that we're in. That's the beast,
Okay.
like all of us together, that collective, mind, like thinking we know how to do it. And like
Interesting.
what he's saying is basically in his name, like the servant king, like the servant king is the highest position you can get in this realm because you are serving God, which means you're serving everybody. And this is also talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, um, that the ultimate spiritual level is service. So here again, with the language, right?
Right.
Like where I was sitting there going, okay, so Mark Passio is saying government is slavery, right? Well, in reality, uh, uh, how does it go? Like freedom is servitude, right?
Mm.
True freedom under natural law is service to natural law, right?
Yeah.
That's the closest thing you're going to get to freedom. And this is also expressed in Taoism and in Christianity, where you give up everything to be given
Mhm.
the world, right? And
You're right.
so that is another aspect I want to get into, which is the legal lawful stuff and how we declare what I'm going to say is bodily autonomy. Because again, to me, what happens with the word sovereignty, once you get to this
Mhm.
understanding that you're talking
Right.
about, it's not really the most accurate word for what we're talking about. We're not saying we're above rule. We're actually saying we are ruled by the creator, but that
Right.
we have been given this body on this realm, and this is the one thing we possess. That's the other thing that the servant king
Right.
gets into is like ownership. The whole trick is that the rich people don't own anything; they possess everything,
Yeah.
right? So it's like this body, which is interesting when you think about possession, like demonic
Mhm.
possession, right?
Yeah.
You and I in this life are possessing this body. Our
Mhm.
spirit, our soul, is in possession of this, and that's the only thing we can claim any kind of like control over, right?
Right.
This is my mind control. This is my physical autonomy, my spiritual autonomy, my mental autonomy. Now, people can try to fuck with that, and that's part of the game. But once you come to the realization that like that is the reality, then the real, again, like the real thing we're talking about is like you have autonomy over your body. You can do it, like, because it feels like after COVID, that's kind of how the narrative has changed. Is that with the masks, people are like, if you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear one. But a lot of people still wear them, and they're
Yeah.
not bitching at everybody else for not wearing them, you know. And
Right.
like, and us that think it's stupid, I'm not going to go tell hey, that's actually bad for you, you know. I might do a campaign where I hand out flyers to let people know, or but it,
Education. Yeah.
but yeah, just to let them know, like, hey, like, you actually probably don't need that. Like, it might make you feel better, but there's no science that shows that it helps you. But at the same time, I'm willing to give that person, that's their bodily autonomy. And I think you and me both have some insight into this, in that people that are close to us, like, took the procedure.
Right.
And it's like, we don't have the luxury to go, I'm not associating with anyone who took
Right.
it. I mean, we're all in this world now where, you know this thing has happened. It's a total emblematic of the health freedom movement. Like, what happened,
Mhm.
it was like the health freedom movement was like predicting it. if
Right.
if I mean, I think we were being controlled by it. I think
Oh, absolutely.
we were a part of the dialectic. They were heightening the hate towards anti-vaxxers, but they were also heightening the skepticism of the healthcare system. And then they dropped COVID on us, and then divided us
Mhm.
along those same lines, but it just
Right.
made it that much easier. So I
Right.
that's where I see the focus of all this stuff going. And
Right.
we can get into, like, spiritual conversations and
Right.
philosophical conversations, because the Christianity thing, like, drives me crazy, because I see people in the natural law community who are like, I call them, they have Christian derangement syndrome, right? Like,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I
Explain that to
understand.
me. What is Christian derangement?
Well,
Like,
like
explain.
like Trump derangement syndrome is
Oh, yeah, I
people who either love Trump and
yeah,
go crazy for him, like, or they hate Trump and they go, and it's like
totally.
totally irrational, right?
Right.
So it's like these natural law guys who are like, you guys are occultists. Like, can't you appreciate the occult significance of the Bible at the very least? I mean, at the
Mhm.
very least, like, there's 33 vertebrae in your spine. Jesus lived to be 33 years old. This is Sodom and Gomorrah. This is the kingdom of heaven. He rose up, and it's like,
Yeah.
there's that symbolism there. There's astrology. There's all
Yeah.
this occult information in the Bible. So yes, I do think it's been weaponized, but there is still some good to it. And to be so extreme and like, religion is the problem, it's like,
Yeah.
you guys are like, you guys are off kilter, dude. You're out of
Yeah.
balance.
I agree with that. There is a complete out of balance, and one of the things with the freedom community is that, they went the other extreme. I will never go to the hospital. I will never do this. I will never do that. But you and I've seen in the last 2, 3 years
Yeah.
that people have had to come to me with things that at this point you need the Western medicine model, because
Right.
that's I mean, and we can dive into, like, it is just the most established. It's not the oldest,
Yeah.
you know, but it is the most established because it has been working for the last 200 years to climb the ladder and establish itself on top of our government and on top of our people, our society. So it's what most people know. They don't know homeopathy that's hundreds of years older, or
Mhm.
Ayurvedic that's 1,000 years older, or herbalism that is from the beginning we had plants.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is that people had emergencies, and those emergencies couldn't be cared for with herbs because it's an emergency. That's like the definition of emergency. It's like herbs take a long time, and you have to do it for a long time and very frequently. And we have been programmed to not have any kind of um, patience, any kind of patience. And we've been programmed, like when you're talking about the religious stuff, we've been programmed to not trust religion. And,
Mhm.
and humans you know, do a great job at screwing things up all the time. And there, I believe also that there has been a lot of implants in the religious faculties to stir the pot and to make people hate, you know,
Well,
this.
I even think that Christianity, it's sort of built into Christianity. It's almost like the ultimate trickery and mockery is that they wrote this book and it's just so compelling and so well written. And like, I mean, if you get into the occult significance and the numerology, it's like, how did they write this thing, right? But then it's a tool, so it depends
Right.
on who's using it. So it
Exactly.
can. I mean, I saw it with like my growing up. I saw my sister totally reject Christianity, and so because of that, she rejected like all religion. She rejected
Yeah.
God completely. But for
Right.
me, I was like, I became more looking at all the religions. So it's really interesting, but it can take you either way depending on how you read it, depending on what you take out of it. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of people read it and they read the Old Testament and it's just rape and,
Mhm.
incest and killing. And they're like, that's not my, that's not my God. God is terrible. And they don't even get into the philosophical thinking of like, what is God? Like forget what the Bible
Yeah.
says. Like, it's not some guy in a cloud, But on the other end of the Christian derangement syndrome is like, I do understand there are a lot of Christian people who just read it uh like it's actually historical and everything happened, and it's
Mhm.
like, to me, like, that is just as bad
Mhm.
because, I mean, one, the fact that it contradicts itself like all over the place.
Mhm.
Two, the fact that um it does it doesn't matter, like, if you take it literally, that means you're basically you're exporting your accountability to have spiritual connection. You're saying Jesus did it for you, you know?
Mhm.
Where if I can look at that metaphorically as like I'm supposed to live like Jesus did, like he's showing me the way,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that becomes much more productive in my life
Mhm.
because how can I be like that? How can I, have better will and
Mhm.
whatever? And um, the sad part about Christianity, I lean very much toward the Eastern religions. This
Uh-huh.
Buddhism is like training you how to be like Jesus, you
Mhm.
know? And
Yeah.
Christianity doesn't do that. It just tells you
I
the
think it
story.
does. Yeah.
You think
I
it
the
does?
thing is, yeah, I think that there is like everything is interpreted internally. This is part of like when you use the body autonomy, sometimes that's why I think when it came to COVID and vaccines and mandates, body autonomy is the right word.
Mhm,
But I think that it's more than just body autonomy. It's like decision making, you know?
mhm,
There's a decision making, like there's a choice. We have to decide. We have to take in information, like in medicine. We take in information that everyone gives us and we decide which is the best choice. When someone calls me and says, hey, this is happening, I'm like, well, based on Western medicine model, this is what you have, a diagnosis. This is the diagnosis that they would give you. This is the treatment plan that they would give you. But then I also say, here are some things you can do naturally or more alternatively, right? Herbs or homeopathy, energetic work, or something or other. And you, as the patient, have to synthesize all of that and make a decision on what aligns with who you are, right?
yeah,
And I think it's the same way with the Bible. I think in any religion that people have, I think that we're born with a connection to what we call God. And and that's a hard word to use because so many people are triggered by that word, right?
no,
Some people use the word creator and this and that, but for me, it's just like, it's just simple. I'm just going to say God here, right?
right,
So
right,
we have to make this decision. We have to make this decision on what, like, connection, or what we are born having that and having this knowing. And when you're around little kids, they know,
hmm,
you know that they know something. And as we get older, programmed, jaded, et cetera, polluted, uh, poisoned, by food and
hmm,
whatever, our minds are shift, our chemistry is shift, our thoughts are shift. And so we need to decide every step of the way of our lives, what is it that we believe? Like
Yeah.
that philosophical question, what is God and what is God to me? Right.
Hmm.
And it can be whatever it can be because every individual has that right to that. Right.
Right.
And and the thing is, it once a person decides, once you decide what is it that I believe in this, I mean, you can always flex and change your mind, but once you decide this, then you start living this. So for people who are Christian, they say like, I decided that yes, that Jesus, is the savior, that God is the king of the domain which I call earth, and then, and I'm a steward of this earth, and everything I have, I steward it the best I can. I make the best choices I can for my body, for my health, for my family, for my community. Like, those all those things are building blocks. So I think that people argue and philosophize, but I think that the knowing is inside of us, and it's a spiritual thing. It's not like something that I can take it out and give it to you and say, because and then I control you, right? And say,
Yeah.
here, this is what spirituality is, or this is what religion is, or et cetera, et cetera. And then once you've made a decision, the Bible, the Torah, whatever you're reading, the books you're reading, you're to educate yourself in what you've chosen for yourself, um you know are your choice, right? And
Yeah.
grow you, you follow that, right? So if you're Christian, you're going to follow the teachings of Jesus, and the teachings of Jesus is, yeah, Jesus did it for you, he's the redeemer and did it all for you, but then you also have to live Christ-like. With Buddha, you say Buddha teaches you to be a good person, to
Yeah.
be like Jesus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know more about religions than I do, but I think that and it's not, and the thing is, I think it goes back to the question that we started with, was saying like, okay, freedom can't be in something, but it
Yeah.
is, right? Right.
I
So,
think
and
freedom is a spiritual concept. It's it's mental and spiritual. It's like it's again, our bodies limit us, like I
Mhm,
can't fly, I can't jump over a building,
right.
like my body has limits. So bodily freedom is kind of, eh, I mean, I get what they mean, but again, it's really autonomy, meaning
A ton.
you control that vehicle, and
Yeah.
that's why I added on the bottom that physical, mental, and spiritual
Okay.
autonomy, because it is. I agree with you. Like, I mean, they are connected, but they are separate, and the only way they can really mess with your bodily autonomy is through mentally and spiritually fucking with you,
Right.
like and that's what they do, because
Mhm.
where you don't have autonomy, or at least it seems, is when you're like a baby, right? People can fill your
Yeah.
head with whatever they want. You're at the whim of a steward, you know and and this is why we need people who are, more, thinking along the lines of morally and how we raise our children, because again, like that's where the biggest responsibility comes in for us
As
as
parents.
adults
Mhm.
and parents. And then again, sharing this with other people who are encountering children, that like
Mhm.
these ages are so important. And like, and again, we could go conspiracy and show you how the government figured the same thing out, that they
Right.
traumatize you in order to then control you, so
Mhm.
yeah, I think I totally agree with you about that. I mean, I just like, I like the word autonomy. Like when you look it up,
Mhm.
it's really like what we're talking about when we say freedom. I mean, I think in the definition of autonomy, when I looked it up,
Yeah.
it actually says self-governance, you know like
Yeah.
freedom. When I looked up the definition of freedom, do you know the first thing it said was, um how did they word it? They said, n- n- not having necessity. Well,
Freedom.
you can't not have necessity. Like, we all have necessity, right? So we're all slaves to something, whether it's our hunger or, and again, we can strengthen ourselves to gain our mind, get our mind control back where we control our minds. And again,
Right.
this is where I love Buddhism, because it is all about centering yourself, trying to push thoughts out of your mind, and getting to this quiet place where you're really kind of
Mhm.
seeing
Right.
the true self,
Mhm.
outside of all this. And then you get these thoughts and you start recognizing all the things that are stressing you out. And
Mhm.
again, I'm not trying to push Buddhism. I
No,
really,
no, no.
you
I
know
totally know I know that because I know you, right?
yeah.
And I'm not trying to push Christianity, but what we're trying to do is have people really think for themselves. Like, the question I would ask you about Buddhism, and then it's like, so so you were saying that it's about pushing everything out, like pushing other people's words and programming and rules out so that you
Right.
can find the core to your true self, right?
Right.
And then, so the thing is, with who, like, that's the next big philosophical question. Who are we? Like, who
Right.
are we, right? In the Christianity, they're like, we're like part of God, right? We're created by God. Like, that's going back to creation, and earth, and you know, and that sense of like, so can we like meditate and get to our core self without bringing in a creator, a god, a deity of some sort? And that's just a question
So
for you and me.
this is what I had with Buddhism when I first started going to the classes. I was like, after maybe like the first or second class, I was like, they haven't talked about God yet, right? But then what I realized is what they did talk about is karma. And it's karma is the spiritual principle that, in my opinion, implies a creator, right? Like, it implies that there's some type of order and law to this realm that we're in, and that there is some process of that we can generate positive outcomes through our
Mhm,
thinking, through our through our mind control. And I
mhm.
think the other thing about meditating is like, this is just an anecdotal story, but I have a
Right.
friend, Christian, grew up Christian, his mom very Christian, but like
Mhm.
really nice lady. Like, you would love this lady. Like, you maybe have met her. She is total Pleasant Hillian. But like, she one time, I think my friend told me that she had said that meditating was like, you're not supposed to do that in Christianity. It's like demonic. Like, you're
Mhm,
you're you're allowing in evil spirits and stuff, right?
mhm,
And like, to me, just intuitively, I always thought praying and meditating were basically the same thing. It's just
mhm,
meditating is sort of like, again, like clearing your mind and getting to a point where you're just like silent.
mhm,
But praying is the same concept, in the terms of you're focusing your energy on some entity that you're calling God, and you're speaking to that thing. Where this is more, I mean, maybe you could look at those as opposites, but
yeah,
I
that,
feel like
no,
it's the
yeah.
same. Maybe like, meditation is this,
Mhm.
and praying is this.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
always just thought, like, I mean, really, Jesus went and sat for 40 days. Like, that's the same thing Buddha did.
Yeah.
It's like, what was Jesus doing? Like, he's just sitting there. That's meditating.
Mhm,
Like, if he's just sitting there with his thoughts, that's meditating. Um, so again, like, just that idea that, that's that extreme side of Christianity, where anything outside of Jesus is like demonic. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, Jesus was, he was dealing with demons. He was,
mhm.
he was basically um practice, I mean, you could say practicing like a form of witchcraft, like in, or where
Mhm.
he's like telling the demons leave, and the demons
Yeah.
leave. They follow his command.
Yeah,
So
if we go into the occult, like the conversations about it, the occult, believes in demons and spiritual, and the Bible talks about spiritual principalities and this and that. And when someone, like, people, like, I don't know if the how the occult puts it, because I'm not versed in the occult, but they become portals, right?
mhm,
We open doors in the
yeah,
spiritual world. We open
right,
doors in the spiritual world. And so maybe that's what she was referring to, like,
Yeah,
because when you're meditating, you're trying to clear all thoughts. And this, I think, like you said, they can almost be they can be the same thing, but they can also be opposites, because
yeah,
in Christianity, when you're praying and you are meditating, he was meditating in the wilderness and whatnot,
yeah,
you're praying to God, you're praying to that connection and relationship to God. There's conversation.
yeah,
Um, but I
yeah.
get what you're saying, that they're similar, absolutely. And I think that, him fasting and all of this other stuff, you make yourself susceptible, vulnerable to, or opening portals of spiritual stuff. And and I've
Well, and
listened to
that's why in the occult, that's why it's occulted,
yeah,
because they don't want it in the wrong hands.
right.
So it's like, I think for me, there's a spiritual realm,
Hmm.
there's spiritual principles and entities that have effects on us, right? As above, so below, right? Like,
Hmm.
we are influenced by energies, and you know but then when you take a skill like meditating, or praying, and then you use that to open a portal to enrich your life, or whatever it might be, then you're violating, well, I don't know, you're just using it in a way that's for yourself, as
Hmm.
opposed to using it in service. So again,
Hmm.
like, the principle is, and really that principle of being in service comes down to do no harm.
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
really the reality. I mean, it goes actually even deeper than do no harm, though,
Hmm.
because to really be in service, I mean, you think about that. You think about, you walk on the street and you see someone who needs help. Are you in service to that person?
Hmm.
Or do
Hmm.
you turn around and go the other way, or just walk by? And it's
Right.
like, I mean, it's really profound, like, to really,
Yeah.
because, and there is also a balance to it, I think, because, like, it's hard to feel completely responsible for the world, but there is this sort of high principle of, like, we should be concerned with, like, helping people, and um
Yeah.
so yeah, but yeah, I
It's
think
not
that,
that it's not only that we should be, but that we are, that you and I wouldn't be here having conversations,
right,
if
right,
that the things that we have learned and we're seeing, we don't want to share with other people. We do. We
exactly,
want to share it. And that's part of our service, right? Of just being human, right?
yeah,
Yeah, like, and then this all goes back to, like, right now what I've been getting into is, like, watching a lot of TikToks on the occult in music, right? And it came up
hmm,
because my son was listening to a song and he's like, the beat is awesome, but he's like, "Mom, the words are just creeping me out. I can't even listen
hmm,
to it." And then he showed it to me and I'm just like, "Yeah, that's." And so then I started, like, just deep diving in all to these conspiracies on, like, the music industry and demon possession and stuff like that.
yeah,
I mean, it's showing, like, blatantly showing, like, all of the gruesome things that musicians are doing and behaving like on stage.
hmm,
But there was one video where people were just all falling back just by
hmm,
singing, and there was
yeah,
just this, like, and then a lady came out and she's like, "I can't be here. There's some demons in that room," you know?
yeah,
So those kind of things we don't talk about, but they're part of that spiritual level that we don't talk about. And we're humans, human people in a society that's governed, and you're given rules and structure, and you just follow that and you follow along with that, and you don't dive into the spiritual part of who you are, and, like, you saying, the body autonomy, until shit hits the fan. And that's what happened with this lockdown situation, where people were being forced, in their bodies and their minds, to swallow fear, and forced medical interventions that they didn't want. And then
yeah,
when they were trying to speak their, at the time we were using the word sovereignty, and what they were really doing is trying to get, that body autonomy, writing those religious exemptions and saying, hey, there's a spiritual part of our society that's not being talked about and it's not being respected. And
Yeah,
that's where we go back to, like, this is why we're here now.
exactly.
And I really like your idea about this, like, being a SHMAG, putting SHMAG on a platform. I
Yeah,
think it's awesome
yeah.
because there's so many intelligent people with ideas and things to talk about.
I'm gonna Suzanne's gonna come by tomorrow, so I'm gonna say hi to her, and I'll
Mhm.
kind of bring it up to her, and because I
Yeah,
was thinking about doing the same thing with her. Maybe next time the three of us
yeah.
can jump on. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to like have it, especially like just you, me, Suzanne starting off, but then slowly bring in people. Interview Jason, interview or just have them come on for the conversation.
Yeah, I think so. I think all of this is a great idea. I do definitely want to focus, like you and Susanna are the first two people I wanted to talk to on my podcast, just
Yeah,
to get this groundwork, this foundation on body autonomy and
yeah,
sovereignty, and then build it from there. And she's still about the natural law. So
right.